Hi, class. Let's see, last week you had your first weekly quiz, and class average was 75, which actually wasn't that bad, because in general, the way I set quizzes up is, if you know anything going on in this class, you should get 40%. And if you study, you should get the next 40%. And the last 20%, you really have to know what you're doing. It's a way to get separation between students. So based on that, you would say, gee, Dr. Cho, why is an average 80? It's because of, yeah, people always choke under pressure. It's just true. And that's why when you become managers and stuff like that, you try to create an atmosphere that isn't pressure-based so people can get their stuff out. But what is this distribution actually telling me? The fact that the high score was 85 means that it was somewhat doable, but most of you are just in this area right here, and then there are a couple of stragglers behind. But you're all packed together, which means that there really isn't much difference between this and this. The one thing that bothers me about this quiz is this. You had 60 minutes to do this quiz, and you did it in 25. What happens is you raced through it. And when you race through quizzes like this, that's where you get into trouble, because there's a lot of subtlety in these quizzes. Why? Because what you're doing, you're not using the knowledge you learned in class. You're just going on your first instincts. And guess what? It's not correct. So for those of you who are stressed out about quizzes, keep a couple of things in mind. First of all, you've probably seen that I curve this. And so what also happens with your quizzes is I drop the lowest. Now, out of the 20 questions, 6 problems the class failed in. They didn't scored under 70. But all the other problems, the class did score more than 70. So it's not a question that the quiz was too hard. It was more an issue of, are you getting enough right questions? An example of that is I once played a tennis match, a doubles match, and we dropped the first 2 sets, 6-7, 6-7. Then we won the next 2 sets, 6-2, 6-0. And then we lost the last set, 6-7. Now, if you total up the games, we won a lot more games than the other team. The problem is we didn't win the right games, and that's kind of the quirk of tennis. Anyway, to give you an example of how to do problems, you have to maintain your discipline. What do I mean by that? The bottle of Islamwana, the British Empire, which had cannons and repeating Henry rifles, went up against the Zulus. And the Zulus only had spears and canvas shields. And what happened? 20,000 Zulus showed up against 2,000 British. However, the British were supposed to have at least a 10-to-1 kill ratio because of their technology. Not only that, if they killed enough Zulus, they would run off. And so they thought they had it easy. Instead, though, they didn't set up their perimeters. They were very sloppy. They were disorganized. And the Zulus actually were very organized, and they just overwhelmed them. It's considered to be the worst loss in the history of the British Empire. Now, once that went out, what happens is, like 100 miles away at Rorke's Drift, you had 2,000 Zulus going up against 200 British soldiers. So what did they do? They set up defenses. They set up organization. They set up, if one line fell, where to fall back on the next defensive period and everything else. And they beat the Zulus off. Why? Even though they're seeing all these warriors, it's easy to panic. It's easy to let your head get away from you. They maintained their discipline. They remembered their training. And that's what you need to do if you want to do well on these quizzes. Also, the thing you're going to see this week is you're going to have your first case. What a case is about is it's a simulation. And it's actually based on something that really happened. So based on what you know, if you were in that situation, what would you do? Now, what it comes down to is I don't have an absolute right or wrong answer for a lot of these. I'm grading you more on process. Why? Because nobody knows what the right answer is. Not only that, it's social science. And the thing about social science is it's not like V equals IR, natural law. There are certain things that are contingent on what the situation is. Now, in terms of taking a multiple choice exam, do you understand how? And multiple choice exams are either top down or bottoms up, meaning the top down means you can read the question and you know what the answer is, and so you just have to hunt for the answer. When that's not clear, then the top part is basically evidence, facts that you have to go by. And then bottoms up is you look at all the answers and you find the best one. More than one answer is right, but one answer is better than all the other answers. And here's an example. This is from your quiz. Someone stole Dr. Cho's Office 360. They have his word, they'll pay. Get it? Anyway, there are many word processing programs. Google even offers theirs for free. But Dr. Cho keeps using Word. So why do people keep using Word? Well, what are the facts in this question? And it's, first of all, there are a lot of word processing programs, and it also tells you that you can get it for free. So, how do I do this problem? And there's a certain gamesmanship in multiple choice exams. And people are trained on it. They don't want to have to learn a new program because it's the cheapest product on the market. All the reasons listed here, and because it's Microsoft. Anytime you see all the reasons listed here, if two are right, then that has to be the answer. If one is wrong, then it can't be the answer. Because it's Microsoft. What does that mean? And so it doesn't tell you about Microsoft. And so therefore, right away you can eliminate these two. So now you're down to two answers. Because it's cheapest product on the market, or people trained on it, they don't want to have to learn a new program. And if you remember about the chasm, it's about switching costs. That's a very big reason how you lock people into something. And because it's the cheapest product on the market, is it? Well, here it says Google offers theirs for free. It's not the cheapest product on the market. And that's so that leaves you with one answer. Now, this one, 44% of you got it right. And there's a lot of subtleties on this. So XM radio, what does it say? A lot of people don't want to try it because the price is too high. It's $19.95 since radio's free. Another thing it tells you is that sales have gone up and then it went flat. And what does that tell you? This is a chasm question. That's one thing about all these problems. You first have to identify the problem, what it's about. And it's about the chasm. And the thing we know about the chasm is there's just a few concepts and ideas. And that's that the idea of the chasm is selling to you is different than selling to your parents. That's the problem with technology. So how do I get them across the chasm? I either have to offer new features, I need to bundle it with something else, I need to bring the price down. What should I do? Well, you can only go by the information in the question on this. People are familiar with the product, so they already know what it is. So let's look at the answers. Run TV ads. If this said nobody knew about it, then this would be a viable answer. But does that say this up here? No. Drop the price to $9.95 a month. What does this say? The price is too high. This is a viable approach. Give a month trial free. Well, you want to give a free trial for a month because they have no idea what the product is, and you believe, and this gets into trial, if you believe they try it, then they're going to fall in love with it. However, it tells you that people are familiar with the product. And so there's a question about how effective this would be. Have online videos showing how to use an XM receiver. Well, it doesn't say they don't have any idea. So the answer is dropping the price. Now, most of you said it's give a month free trial. Here's the problem with that. You're going by what your instincts and what your feelings are. You're not going by the facts in the question. Maintain your discipline. So here's the strategy for multiple choice exams. If you can't solve the problem in 10 seconds, you read it and you don't know what to do, it doesn't jump out at you within 10 seconds, move to the next problem. Identify the keywords. What's the key information? Here's the hardest thing. Figure out what is the topic. Will the question tell you of what the topic area is, or will the answers tell you? But once you know, oh, this is a question about segmentation, or this is a question about buyer behavior, then all of a sudden you're limited to a few certain ideas. And then you can figure out what the answer is. Once you know what the topic is, you can figure out the concept. That's the thing. When you look at all these lectures, they look long. But when you really distill it down, there's just a couple of ideas you have to remember. For example, if you took a course with W.P. Carey, they would tell you like the 200 or 300 value propositions. There's no way on earth you're ever going to remember that. There's only 3 values we have: economic, emotion, and utility. Doesn't make my life easier. If a product can't fit into one of those 3 categories, people aren't going to value it. Very simple. And now you can look at a situation and figure out, okay, here are the 3 values. Doesn't make sense. Now, for those of you who are turning things in late or get into trouble with this class, and it happens a lot during the summer, my business isn't to fail you. My business is to try to get you to learn something. So if you're 1 hour late, there's going to be no penalty. And I was supposed to put this was supposed to be written into my syllabus, and it wasn't. And I apologize about that. If it's 1 hour late, there's no penalty. Why? Because if you turn it in 15 minutes late, I'm not going to give you a 0. On the other hand, if you're 61 minutes late, then yeah, there's a penalty. You say, but Dr. Cho, I was only 1 minute late. No, you were 61 minutes late. If you're 1 day late, I take 5% off. And up to the last Monday, during the last week of class, if you get your stuff in, I'll take 10% off. Now, why don't I just give you a 0? What do you learn if I give you a 0 and you know you're going to get a 0, you'll never do it and you'll never learn anything. So that's why, but I have to be fair to the people who do turn it in on time. So you get 10% off. And what I call this is my amnesty period. Now, for those of you who get into a lot of trouble, and I've done this before, and honestly, it's a humongous pain in the ass, but I'm here to help you. And that's that I have students who are on the verge of failing this class, who hadn't done any work all semester. And they come to me and say, Dr. Cho, I have to pass or I'm not going to graduate. It's like, oh, tell me again why this is my problem. Yeah, and then it becomes like Star Wars. Help me, Obi-Wan. Anyway, what I did is I looked through everything this person didn't do, and I told them, okay, look, do this, do this. These are easy. You could do that. Skip Thin TV. It's a lot of work. It's very difficult. And so I said, if you can do 80% on all these, then you'll get a C and pass. And that's what the person pretty much did. And actually, that one semester, oh my God, I had to drive like 6 people across the finish line. Anyway, the discussion question, shoes in the Outback. What's the answer? Depends. There's no right or wrong answer. Now, in general, you would say, this is what I always do at products. And for those of you who are going to entrepreneurship, you should think about this. Pick a product up and just look at it and say, does this have value? Again, we have 3 values. If it fits one of them, then I should move forward with it. Does a shoe have value? Shoe has tremendous value. Okay, but why do I say it depends? This is where you need to do your research. What if you find out among the Aboriginals in the Outback, it's like a religious sin to cover your feet? All of a sudden, uh-oh. And that's what I mean about social science, that there's always exceptions to the rule. In general, though, a shoe has a lot of value. And so for those of you who made those kind of arguments, basically, I'm not going to take off because, oh, you didn't have both sides. I'm just looking for your logic. And that's what a lot of your career is going to be. You make an argument and then you support it. So this week we're going over segmentation and also targeting. Now, for case 1, which is going to be tough on a lot of you. If I sell $100 million worth, and again, maintain your discipline. For each of these boxes you need to fill in, just focus on each box at a time on how to solve it. Or if it tells you about cost, just sit down and go through it one at a time. Here's one hint. The cost of a display is based on how many dollars per square inch. So if I have 10 square inch display and the cost is $1 per square inch, then it's $10. If I have a 1 square inch one and it costs $1 per square inch, then the cost is $1. Yeah, it's not $10, it's the cost is $10. But anyway, and that's the way actually displays work, that they have this big panel and then they cut it up. And so they're playing, but in terms of the scaling of it, the cost is based on the area alone. So for that problem about area per price, you don't have to do it for each one. As long as you know the dollar per square inch, you could apply it to any display size. But in terms of figuring out volumes, it doesn't always tell you the answer. Well, you have to use the information, and this is what you're going to have to do in industry. So for example, if I sell $100 million worth of earphones and they cost $100 each, how many did I sell? Well, I just divide, right? And then I know I sold 1 million earphones. And for one of these volumes, that's what you need to figure out. But the big thing is maintain your discipline. For example, you need to figure out what the market size on some of these are. Then it tells you what percentage. And then that tells you how many you're actually selling. And so that's not that difficult. But the point is when you're inundated with information, it's very natural to go, oh my God, how do I do all this? You can do it. And you're going to find out that you can. If you have any questions, please let me know. And have a great week.